Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome back to Blu-Roy Movies. It's the weekend. It can only mean one thing. It's time for the weekly watches. How we all doing? Right, this week we have got 9 titles to talk about. Yeah, 9 films. I think it was 9 last week. I need to get a life, don't I? 9 films a week. Yeah. Uh, just a caveat of information. This will be the last weekly watches for a couple of weeks. Myself, Mrs. Blu-Roy, and a couple of other members of the family, we're off on our holidays next weekend, so we should be having a break from weekly watches and all that jazz. Yeah, so there won't be any next weekend or the weekend after, but I'm sure you're welcoming the break from this ugly mug for a couple of weeks. We'll do something midweek. I think of something to do before I go. Maybe a shelf video or two. We'll see how we get on. But again, thanks for all your support over the last recent months and weeks. It's been emotional. Yeah, no, it's been good. Been loving the comments. The comments just seem to get better and better every week. So if you watch and you don't normally comment, just say hello down below. Just introduce yourself. It's nice to know who watches. And yeah, without further ado, let's roll the credits and we'll get into it, shall we? Right, we started off the week in style with Cabaret from 1972, directed by Bob Fosse. I presume you pronounce it Fosse and not Fosse. I mean, we have the Fossway Road that's spelt the same. So, yeah, we'll go with Bob Fosse. Starring Liza Minnelli, Michael York, Helmut Green, Joel Grey, Marissa Berenson. Yeah, what a great film. I only watched it because when I watched Barry Lyndon a couple of weeks ago, Marissa Berenson, she appeared in that as the wife, and yeah, she was really good. So I just wanted to watch something else with her in because I'd never seen it. So I plumped for this, and yeah, great choice indeed. Winner of 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, apparently, and I could see why because it was fabulous. This is all set in Berlin. I think it starts off in 1931, so the start of like sort of the rising of the Nazi Party in Germany, and it's about Michael York's character. He's this writer who comes over from England to do some work in Berlin and looking for a flat to live. And when he's looking at a flat, he runs into Liza Minnelli's character, who he gets friendly with, and she works at this club called the Kit Kat. It's easy for you to say. Kit Kat Club. Try saying that after a few beers. A sort of nighttime rendezvous bar type place, all singing, all dancing, you know, the type of thing back in them days. They get very friendly. They form at first a platonic relationship, which leads to more. Michael York is this bisexual character, and she sort of enfolds him in the way of this club and the opulence of it. And yeah, really, really good. The songs in it. I don't normally do musicals, but they fitted well because they were sort of showing you what goes on in the club. And I didn't know the song "Money Makes the World Go Round" was from Cabaret, so I've learnt something as well. Yeah, so you've got all this decadence, this opulence, whilst outside the club you can see the rise of the Nazis. At first, they're considered this sort of like, I don't know, I wouldn't say quaint little, but this sort of little organisation that nobody's taking any heed to, saying it will all blow over, and they're growing and growing until you can see changes, people are being persecuted. So that side of it was really interesting. How one side these guys were living life up, and outside other guys were getting beaten and tortured and arrested just for their faith or colour or whatever. Yeah, really, really good film. There's a love triangle that sort of goes on between Manelli, York, and this other guy that's quite interesting. I can highly recommend it. If, like me, you haven't seen it, yeah, give it a watch and you don't like your musicals, it's a really good. So on the back of that, I've also picked this up by Foss, and I should be watching that probably today at some point. And look at very similar covers there. So if that is any good as that, I'm sure I'm in for a ride, and I'm sure it will be, because I think this won Best Picture as well. Yeah, that is Cabaret. Good start to the week. And I followed that up with Tigerland from the year 2000, directed by Joel Schumacher. It stars Colin Farrell, Matthew Davis, Clifton Collins Jr., Shia Wyam. I love Shia Wyam. I think he's a good character actor in. Michael Shannon also in a small part. And this is an alright war film. It's not the best. It's entertaining. Tigerland, is the place where, when they were training the soldiers to go off to the Vietnam War, that would be like an almost reenactment of what they're going to expect in Vietnam. They do their training in the boot camp, then they go on to Tigerland, which is like heavily forested, and I suppose the closest they could get to jungles in America before they flew them off to Vietnam. I'm not sure whether Tigerland was a place that actually existed, so if anybody knows that, let me know down below. And this is the story of like Colin Farrell's journey from being enlisted. Yeah, he didn't volunteer, he was enlisted, through boot camp, and then on to Tigerland, this place, as I say, before they set sail. Well, they wouldn't set sail, they're called aeroplanes, but before they headed off to the Vietnam War. And yeah, it's decent. Farrell is doing his best to get shipped out of the army. He doesn't want to go to Vietnam, and who would, because it was absolutely horrendous. So he's not towing the line, he's doing everything against authority to try and get himself kicked out. But they're determined that they're going to see him through, and then off to the war. And you can imagine it's quite generic. You can probably, from what I say, imagine that what's going to happen already. It treads a familiar path as these stories go. What I would say is it cuts out, the film ends after the Tigerland experience, so you don't actually see them go off to the war, and I think the film suffers a little for that, and maybe one in the eye for people that say Full Metal Jacket should only be left at the sort of like boot camp stage, and it loses traction after that in the actual war, because I disagree. I think the war part of Full Metal Jacket is an integral part of the film, and I think they should have put something like that in here, and I think that would have enhanced it. But it was all right. It passed an hour and 40 minutes. It's not particularly long. So, yeah, probably another hour with them at the war. I'd have welcomed it, and as I say, probably not put it up a notch or two for me. Yeah, Tigerland, Joel Schumacher. And next I went for Houdini from 1953, directed by the fabulous George Marshall, starring Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh. Now, I think Houdini's sort of a forgotten figure these days. I remember when we were kids back in like the 70s and 80s, there always seemed to be a lot in the media of the time about Houdini's sort of a legendary figure, this magician turned escape artist. Yeah, I think there's just a lot more buzz about him. And I always remember my brother and I would reenact some of his fabled exploits. We'd tie each other up with skipping ropes and see if we could escape and all that jazz. I think, yeah, I think kids in them days were totally different. I mean, we used to lick batteries and lead soldiers and stuff like that. Certainly not things that kids do these days, and probably wisely so. Yeah, this is all about the life of real life magician, escapologist Harry Houdini, who was born in Budapest in 1874 and died in the States in 1926 of peritonitis. And yeah, good solid biopic of a figure that I've always been interested in. It charts his life sort of from his early career, where he was one of these exhibitions in, you know, you see these American carnivals in films and they have the sideshows with the freaks, and he'd put a mask on and pretend to be the wild man of Borneo at one stage, and then he'd take it off and quickly put on his fake tuxedo and do a few magic tricks and stuff like that. It charted his career and his relationship with his wife, played by Janet Leigh, and such a good relationship these two had, if anything's to go by through the film. It's like I say, he started off small, then he went into magic, and really couldn't make a name for himself until he went to Europe and started his escapologists, and his tricks would get more daring and more daring. But when he returned back to the States, then again, like, nobody really knew of him because he was only big in Europe, so he was trying to break out in the States. And yeah, good stuff. And like I say, his tricks and his escape acts just got more and more crazy. There was one where he locked himself in a safe and broke the ice on a frozen river and dropped the safe in, and he had to escape from the safe and the frozen river. Yeah, really crazy guy, really interesting life he lived. And I think the sale's on. I think you can still get this for $5. I'd recommend picking it up because it's a decent watch. Yeah, that's Houdini. Good stuff. Next, I went for Gemini Man. This was from 2019, directed by Ang Lee, starring Will Smith, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Clive Owen, and Benedict Wong. Now, I've watched this before, and I remember quite enjoying it, and I must have been in a good mood at the time when I watched it, because on rewatch, I thought it was bloody terrible. It was awful. It was boring, crap story. It's all about Will Smith's character. He's this ace hitman, the best in his business, but he's getting old. His skills are waning, if you like, and he carries out one last job, and he finds out that his mark, the person he killed, he wasn't quite who they told him he was. He thought he was killing a bad guy off, but it turned out to be this well-renowned scientist who was doing good experiments and trying to do good for the world. And then when he delved deeper into it, he found a lot of his hits were like that. When he was getting his resume, you've seen all these hitmen films, they send them these resume throughs of the target and all their information, and they were painting a lot of them out to be bad people when they weren't. They were being killed off for an agenda. Then this mysterious hitman is sent to kill him, who looks like a much younger version of Will Smith. And it turns out that, yeah, this younger Will Smith is actually a clone of Will Smith that's been taken by Clive Owen, who's raised him as his dad. And Clive Owen, I normally like Clive Owen, but he was pretty bad at this. I couldn't tell. He was supposed to be an American guy, and I couldn't tell if he was doing the accent at times, if he wasn't doing the accent, if he just couldn't be asked to do it. Yeah, he wasn't the best, which is a surprise for me, because like I say, I like him normally. He has sort of a romantic meet-up with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who is also a government agent, but he outs her as being an agent who's spying on him very early, and they form this relationship together where they're trying to sort everything out. And yeah, it turns out that Owen is cloning loads of Will Smiths because he's the best in the business. And I can imagine all them Will Smiths, like Chris Rock would never sleep at night, would he? Will full of Chris Smiths, all these excellent hitmen. Yeah, it was boring. A lot of computer work to show the young Will Smith, and it took me out of it at times because you could see like the computer character, there's no life in the eyes. You can see it's pretty dead behind the eyes, and it took me out of it. And I can't see myself ever going back to this film again. I'll probably take it out of the collection now and use the shelf space for something else. Yeah, shame really, because like I say, I remembered I'd enjoyed it before. Will Smith, Gemini Man. And next up, I went for, and I tell you what, you can't accuse me of watching the same movies all the time. I certainly try and mix it up with what I watch. I watched Ride Lonesome from 1959 with directed by Bud Bodichon, which is 7 films that he made with Randolph Scott. Yeah, starring Randolph Scott, Karen Steele, Parnell Roberts, James Coburn, Lee Van Cleef. Cracking cast. And yeah, it was all right. Randolph Scott. Now, I'm not the biggest Randolph Scott fan. If I was to rank sort of the Western stars at the time, it'd be a long way down. Certainly not got the charisma, in my opinion, of the Waynes, the Stewarts, them sort of people, Burt Lancaster, Glenn Ford. Yeah, I'd certainly can't put him in the same league as them. He has got a lot of fans, so maybe it's just me, but I do find him a little bit dour, if I'm honest. But this is all about Randolph Scott. He's a bounty hunter. How many of these films have bounty hunters? And he wants to take in this criminal for hanging and get the bounty on. But he's stopped all the way by Parnell Roberts and James Coburn, who I think it was his first role, and they're these outlaws too. But they know if they take this guy in, they'll get an amnesty and be pardoned of their crimes. So they're tagging along so they can take the credit and get their crimes remitted. Also, you've got a gang headed up by Lee Van Cleef, who's this guy's brother, who they want to rescue him, which you don't see enough of. That would have made it far better, but you don't see it till the last 20 minutes or so, this gang of Lee Van Cleef. And like I say, that would have elevated the film, because Lee Van Cleef is brilliant, but he's just sadly underused. You've got Indians as well that try and kill them, so they have to deal with them. And you've got this lady here, played by Karen Steele, whose husband was killed, and she tags along with them. And she was very good, actually. I've never seen her in anything else, but she could rival these like blonde bombshells of the time. Yeah, she was quite decent, good actress. I think she's in another Randolph Scott Bodichon Western, so I'll have to have a watch that. I'm sure I've got it on the shelf as well. Yeah, decent Western, nothing special, quite short, look nice, filmed in Technicolor, good scenery, as a lot of Westerns do. Yeah, decent. Give it a watch, it's worth watching. And next, from 2019, directed by Tim Miller, who also directed Deadpool, starring Linda Hamilton, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mackenzie Davis, Gabrielle Luna, Natalia Reyes, and that is Terminator Dark Fate. Now, I watched the previous Terminator on last week's video. Is it Genesis? I think it is. Yeah, Genesis. And a lot of people, I think I mentioned I hadn't seen this one yet, and a lot of people commented that I should watch it, and half of the people were saying it's not bad, and half of the people were saying it was terrible. So it seems to be quite split on you guys' opinion. Yeah, so a lot of you urged me to watch it, so yeah, I did just that, and I come on the side of it's a bloody abomination. I hated it. Now, if I'd never seen a Terminator film in my life, and I watched this first, I might have quite enjoyed it as the film itself. But I have seen a Terminator film, and T1 and T2, like a lot of people, very close to my heart. And I don't want to sound like a fanboy. I don't like fanboyism and stuff like that in general, but I just didn't like what it did to those films. I love them films, and in my opinion, it's just crapped all over it. I mean, they started off by killing John Connor. What's all that about? You can't kill John Connor. They've turned Linda Hamilton into a Karen. She's just this annoying old woman that moans about everything. A proper Karen. She was awful. Arnie, who killed John Connor years ago, has suddenly grown a conscience as a Terminator. The Terminators don't have consciences, and has settled down with this woman and kid who apparently have got no idea that he's a Terminator. I mean, I think you'd have a rough guess. Just bloody ridiculous. The action, a lot of it's dark and you can't tell what's going on. It's very shaky. This girl here, Mackenzie Davis, she was good as this woman set back from the future to protect this other woman who was going to be like the next John Connor or something. Like Skynet doesn't even exist. It's some other shitty company that's taken over from them and trying to kill everybody in the world. Oh, God. Really, really bad. I'm sorry. It just did nothing for the Terminator universe, and just stop now. Like, if this is what you can, is this what you can do to it? Just don't bother anymore, because we don't need it. Just watch the first two, or even the first three. I don't mind the first three. Up next, and in a totally different direction from Terminator Dark Fate. Dark Fate, wasn't that a beer by Strongbow anyway? Yeah, Babette's Feast from 1987, directed by Gabriel Excel, starring Stefano Dran as the titular Barbette, Bodil Scher and Bridget Federspiel, which I've probably totally butchered them names, but you know this channel. Yeah, Babette's Feast. Now, I was watching Warren Goose's Movies video, his part 2 of his collection video, where he showed all his collectible Blu-rays, and he was really talked up Babette's Feast, saying it's a favourite of his, and I'd coincidentally, a week or so before, picked up a DVD copy in a charity shop, so Warren gave me that push on to watch it, and thank you very much, Warren, because this was a beautiful, fantastic film. I really enjoyed this. This is about Babette there, the titular character, and she's a refugee from the Franco-Prussian War of the 1870s, I think, something like that, which I know very little about. I do believe it was an important war in history, but my knowledge in it is sadly lacking. Yeah, she was a refugee from that who went to live on this Danish island, which was a beautiful island. Well, I say beautiful. In the nice weather, it looks beautiful, but in the howls of winter, very foreboding place that you'd need to wrap up warm. She goes to live with these two sisters, these two devout religious sisters, who have always lived with their father. Their father, when he was alive and they were young women, they And when the two sisters, when they were younger, they were two beautiful, beautiful ladies. But they were always at his father's side, as he was the head of this remote commune, this religious commune. He's sort of like the pastor guy. And they'd never married. They'd always carried on their father's work even after he died. And they'd had a couple of dalliances with young men in the past that never led to anything. I think they always remained on a platonic side from the women's, although the two guys, they were certainly like, wished that they'd fall in love and get married and all that. But like I say, they were devout Christians and they wanted to carry on their father's work even after death. Now, Babette, she gets taken in with these sisters when they're a bit older and harvests them from the war, and they take her on as their housemaid and cook. Babette, after quite a few years, she wins this lottery and wants to repay these two sisters and the community in itself by making them this sumptuous French feast to take them back and remind Babette of her homeland, because she was this really, really good cook back in Paris. And they all sit down for this feast, and these people, these religious people, they've never seen anything like it in their lives, and they're taken aback at first, but as each sumptuous course after sumptuous course gets brought out and it's more exotic and more exotic, and the wine gets finer and finer, we find that any divisions between this group of people over the times that grew get closed as they enjoy themselves and get merry and merry on the wine. And it's a lovely looking film. It's a gentle film that washes all over you. But it's a beautiful film, and a film I thoroughly enjoyed, and thank you, Warren, for giving me the push to watch that, because it's really, really great stuff. Yeah, Babette's Feast. I would upgrade it to Blu-ray now. I know Warren's got the Criterion America, which is very expensive, but I think there is a British release. And next up, I watched The Shooting Party from 1985, directed by Alan Bridges, with a wonderful British cast. James Mason, Edward Fox, Dorothy Tooty, John Gielgud, Gordon Jackson, Robert Hardy, to name a few. And yeah, I picked this up. I saw it in the charity shop. James Mason and his last ever role before he sadly died. I'll pick anything up with James Mason, a favourite actor of mine. Brilliant voice. I could listen to him all day. And went into it not knowing what it was about. I thought, judging by the cover, it might be some sort of crime film, but no, not at all. It wasn't that at all. But it was pretty good. It's set in 1913, just a few short months before the war, and the country and Europe is in a state of change. James Mason, he is the lord of this big country manor, and they're sort of clinging on to lords and ladies and the whole peerage and aristocracy. It's in the final days of that, but they're all in sort of denial, saying it will never end. And he gets together all these fellow lords and aristocracy from across Europe to take part in a shooting weekend. And it's just brilliantly acted how these characters all get on together. And Mason was a standout character. He was such a good guy and well revered amongst his peers and the people who work for him and the local villagers. He was well liked to such an extent. He was such a likeable guy that John Gielgud, he played this animal rights activist type person who walked onto their estate while they were shooting with a placard saying "Stop the killing," and he ended up befriending James Mason and in fact giving him some business cards so that James Mason could do some business with an acquaintance of his. Yeah, great film. Good ending. Really enjoyed the ending. It's a very much like Babette's Feast, a feel-good mood piece, but the end, there's quite a bit of drama concerning Gordon Jackson. Again, another actor I really like. Really like Gordon Jackson from The Sweeney and The Great Escape and stuff like that. And yeah, good film. I recommend that if you like your British films, if you like your James Mason, your period pieces. Certainly not a film I'd have watched 10 years ago. Maybe not a film I'd have watched 5 years ago. Like, my filmic tastes are evolving as I'm getting older, and I do like these big country manor type films, and even to the point where I'm contemplating giving Downton a try, which I'd have never have thought a few years ago. Yeah, I might give it a couple of episodes and watch that, see how I get on with it. Yeah, Shooting Party, good stuff. And last one for the week, Jurassic World Dominion from 2022, directed by Colin Trevorrow. I think he directed the Jurassic World film before this. I might be wrong. Chris Pratt even, Bryce Dallas Howard, she's lovely, she is. Laura Dern, Sam Neill, Jeff Goldblum, them three returning. And this film's a mess. This film is a complete mess. The plot has so much going on, it's hard to keep track of. There's this company that is doing DNA sampling on the dinosaurs so they can try that, so they say, to cure illnesses in humans. There's genetic engineered locusts going around killing crops, and the whole food chain's in danger of collapsing in the world. There's dinosaurs all over the world, which would have been a better if they'd have kept with the dinosaurs all over the world and the havoc they were causing on cities and that. It would have been a better film. They've brought back the three main from the first film. Very much felt like a bit of fan service for me. I do like Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard as a pair. I think they've got some chemistry, and I'm quite enjoying these films. The films, like I say, it's a mess, but I did enjoy it. I did find it watchable. I went for the extended cut, which is 2 hours 40, which is probably a mistake. I think it's some 15 minutes longer than the theatrical cut, and it has got some pacing issues, in my opinion, a bit like my videos, I suppose. But there you go. But like I say, I enjoyed it. It was all right. There's some good action scenes, some good chases. There was a woman who played this character where she laser dotted people and the raptors had chased them. She was a good character, sadly underused. There's another woman who was sort of like a pilot for hire. She was a good character. All in all, it was enjoyable. I could probably watch it again in the future. Yeah, not bad. So that was it for the week, guys. Thanks very much for watching. As always appreciate it. Give us a like and all that business. And I'll see you all again soon. Ta-ra, take care.